the doctrines of Christianity, the Orthodox Christianity, they're not coherent. Using your words, logically coherent. Instead, many of the heresies that has gone by in history, they make more coherent sense than Orthodox Christian doctrines.
I disagree with you on that matter.
Okay.
I think that.
So give me examples of your main doctrines and how they're coherent, rather than me telling you what I find. Maybe I'm not looking at the right doctrines. So what are your main core doctrines of the gospel message?
I would believe that God created the heavens and the earth. Yeah.
Okay.
That He's the creator. That He creates us in His image. He wants a relationship with us. That God is love by nature. So He's not just loving, but He is love. I would believe that there was a fall. Yeah. So sin came into the world. That would be number 2. I would believe that that Jesus came down and died for our sins. Jesus is God. I believe in one being, 3 persons, which is God. And I believe that He's going to destroy evil and fix the earth, because the earth was destroyed, kind was destroyed, and He's one day gonna fix it.
Okay.
So one day He's coming back. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Basically, I've spoken to a lot of Christians and Muslims, right? And so according to the Islamic theology, right? Like, for example, and for me, I want to know, like, what's your evidence to prove that, like, Muhammad was this true prophet, this true amazing guy?
Yeah, what
evidence? Like, for example, like, apparently, like, even Prophet Muhammad, he said that when I don't know what was that cave that he got that revelation from. What was the cave?
Cave Hira. Cave Hira.
But no one was there when he got that revelation from Angel Gabriel. So how would you know that, you know, he got this revelation from this Angel Gabriel when he was the only person there to get that revelation? Like, how no one was there, like, there was no witnesses, no one was there when he got those revelations from the Quran, right? So how would you know what's the proof or evidence to prove that, you know, Muhammad actually did got this revelation, the Quran, from this Angel Gabriel?
Brilliant question. I mean, I think there's few things that we need to clarify. In the cave of Hira, that was the first revelation, which is about 5 verses or 5 ayat of the Quran. That was it. All the subsequent revelation didn't happen there in the cave. It happened elsewhere, in front of people, in front of his family, and so on and so forth. At one point, when the revelation was descending on him, he was on a camel or a horse, and the horse or camel could be seen descending on the sand, going down, depressed on the sand, because of the weight or loftiness of the revelation. This is all in our narrations. So the question is about eyewitness testimony. The first revelation, of course, he was alone. Yeah. But it wasn't that the whole Quran was somehow revealed in a cave. No, that was the first 5 verses out of 6,000 or so verses of the Quran, right? Okay. How do we know Prophet Muhammad is a prophet or not is a very important question to ask, because more than 1/5, it's like 1/5 to 1/4 of population of this world is a Muslim, believes in him as a messenger of God, a prophet of God. So there has to be something.
But just because 1/5 of the population.
No. I'm saying why it's important question to ask. Ask, because if 1/4 of the population of the earth believes in Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it's only reasonable to ask why so. That's all I'm asking. It doesn't prove that he's a prophet. No. It only makes the importance of the question being asked is important. Yeah, very important. Right. What we say is, he is a prophet, not of his own making. God chose him to be a prophet and established through him proofs and evidences for his prophethood. Okay? So his own self as a person, as his own character, testifies to that event of prophethood. Because a prophet, you expect, start from the scratch. What would be the characteristics of when God chooses a prophet or a messenger? Yeah? A prophet and a messenger is someone who's going to convey a message to the people from God. So they are the spokesperson of God to communicate a message to the people. So you would expect the messenger to have certain characteristics, obviously. So if the messenger, one of the characteristics of the messenger is this prophet of the messenger, or this particular warner, or glad tider, who gives glad tidings, someone who is of a very bad character, someone who lies, someone he is not truthful, someone who's not trustworthy, if that person comes along and says, God has made me a prophet, you would not believe in him, because you know this person doesn't speak the truth.
He has more wives, several wives, and wives who are very...
How would having 2 wives or 3 wives somehow make you not a prophet of God, or make you not a truthworthy? We'll come to this point.
Or
okay.
a 9-year-old.
Let me address this about marriages. When Abraham married a slave girl like Hagar, so that was his second wife, because she was given as a wife to Abraham.
Yeah, but it was your point. It wasn't mine.
No, please. I'm just saying, if marrying more than one, or marrying someone old or young, is a reason to question the prophethood of a prophet, then we need to address this point. So let's talk about Abraham and all the other prophets in the Old Testament in the Jewish times. Solomon, for example, he had 700 or so concubines. Now, does that somehow remove him from his office of prophethood from God's eyes? I don't think so. Abraham, the patriarch of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim people, right? Our 3 religions, we call him the patriarch. Now, he had more than one wife. Now, and in fact, that was a slave woman that was given, right? Does that somehow take him away from his prophethood? Does it?
Is your point that Muhammad in some kind of way was a very moral being, righteous being? Is that your point?
I've already alluded to the character. The character is important, but in terms of
is that the evidence that he's a prophet, that he was a righteous being? And then you're saying that to marry a 9-year-old is not something wrong.
Okay, you seem to have a problem with marrying someone young, or maybe someone old. So let's address that.
I do.
Let's address that.
But
okay. No, let's address that first. Okay. Anyone to be a prophet of God, if someone marries a 14-year-old, would that be an obstacle to become a prophet? Or someone who marries, in fact, okay, why am I just asking a rhetorical question? Do you know, in Jewish teaching, you should get married before the age of 15. For 14 years old, you should get married. All the marriages in the past in the Jewish traditions were before the age of the 14.
It doesn't matter. You're making the point that Muhammad was a righteous person. I'm not saying that you need to be a righteous person to be a prophet. That was your words, if I understand
you see,
if I didn't understand
I did not. Okay, fine.
Explain for me
okay.
what you were trying to say by saying that Muhammad was a righteous person. Because
fine.
I can't see it like he was a man of warfare. Like in my eyes,
sure. Is warfare another obstacle? Fine. Another point.
If you would have said that you don't have to be a righteous person, then it would be no problem
okay.
to me. But
let's address that point.
To me that's what you wanted to do.
Let's address that point. Remember what I said. His character also testifies to the office of prophethood. But I said, as God chooses someone to be a prophet, he did not make himself a prophet. So God chooses whom he places his
then he asked
message.
For the evidence.
If you see, one second. I was just explaining that the prophet didn't make him a prophet. God makes him a prophet and gives proofs and evidence of his prophethood and messengership. That's what I said. I have not shared you any of those proof and evidences. Okay. Instead, what I said, even his character points to his being a prophet. And I said, let's understand this from the scratch. A prophet, to be a prophet of God, there has to be certain characteristics that they should uphold. If that prophet, one who's claiming to be a prophet, was a liar, would you trust this individual to be a prophet of God? Was my question. I give you an example. If someone comes along and is known to their people, the society at that time, that person cheats, lies, is untrustworthy, not truthful, would anyone place a trust in that person to be God's spokesperson?
No.
I would say no. So essentially what we are saying is, one of the important characteristics of a prophet has to be being truthful and being trustworthy. Now, Prophet Muhammad.
Isn't another characteristic that, like,
No, there are many.
For example, that you have seen God and actually spoken directly to God.
Remember,
isn't that also one
we are establishing.
Is that also one of the characteristics that?
Let's have a look.
Because you see all the people in the Bible, they would meet, and then comes this guy who's coming 600 years later.
Can we establish?
He's never even met God.
Sure.
And then
can we establish point by point, right?
Because
we're moving away from several points.
That's an important criterion.
Sure. The criteria I'm laying down. Remember, the criteria I'm laying down is something that I'm asking you. Do you agree with them? You agreed.
Yeah.
So, and you brought forth further criteria. We can address those criteria further.
Do you agree with that?
One second.
One criteria is to me.
According to our Islamic tradition, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes, he went and he spoke to God directly.
Muhammad spoke to God?
Yes.
He met God?
Yes.
Personally?
Yes. So you didn't know that. So the criteria is already met.
Where is that written? Where?
In our traditions.
Oh, where? Which book?
The traditions of Isra and Mi'raj
where?
is called.
Can you show me where?
Bear with me.
You can show me, because I don't think you can show me.
Bear with me.
That Muhammad met you just told me that Muhammad met directly with God, and he met personally with God. That Muhammad talked to God like a person to person. That's what you just told me.
Yes.
Can you show me?
Sure. Of course we can.
Show me.
I'm just saying we can. So relax.
Where?
If I'm about to give you, don't say where. I can understand that you have not come across this because perhaps your knowledge about Islam isn't to that level yet. No problem. I am saying this event is known as Isra and Mi'raj in our Islamic tradition. Isra refers to the travel from Mecca to Jerusalem. And the Mi'raj refers to from Bayt al-Maqdis, Masjid al-Aqsa, from Jerusalem to the furthest heaven. That is called Mi'raj, ascending to heaven. Now at one point, even the angel Gabriel who was accompanying him, he says, I cannot go any further. Now you go alone. So the Prophet goes alone, and then he passed the Sidratul Muntaha, the last, what we call the boundaries of everything that you can have beyond the seven heavens, and then he meets God. What we say is, there is a veil in between God and the Prophet. Veil, yes? So God speaks behind the veil. Some of our traditions say, yes, God, he sees his Lord, and others says, no, he didn't see his Lord, it is this veil. So if I were to even show up now, look, open up anywhere, Mi'raj.
So he went all
yes,
the way
yes.
up to the heaven.
Look. I'm giving you evidence,
like,
right?
It's your traditions also say, by your own traditions, Muhammad, when he got the first revelation, he didn't even know.
Sorry.
He didn't even.
Could we discuss one point at a time?
If it was an angel.
It seems like.
Or if it was the devil.
No. It seems.
He didn't even know.
Excuse me. It seems.
For me, I think that's strange.
No.
I find it very odd and very strange.
Look.
And for you then telling me that was a personal relationship with God, when Muhammad even himself did not understand, that's really strange.
Look,
I find it really strange.
Brother, one moment.
Okay.
What
we need to. No, excuse me. He's going to listen to me.
I'll let him finish.
Thank you, brother. What seems to be happening is you asked one question, and on the backbone of that question, we have several other peripheral questions. Now, it is only important to keep the original question in mind.
Evidence.
And the question about prophethood. How is he a prophet of God? What evidence? Remember what we talked about? So I said, I will entertain the question that you asked about this young marriage and also about warfare that you brought along. What has warfare to do with evidence? I will ask. Didn't Moses fight wars? Does that stop him from being a prophet? No, it doesn't. So this is really totally irrelevant. The point that was made.
Brought up that the evidence is his character.
Listen.
So if you're not saying that, I don't want any evidence which has to do with character at all.
If you want to maintain the continuity, so as I said, two things. One is the evidence that God places on the prophet for the proof of prophethood.
What evidence?
That's what I'm giving you yet.
Yeah, can you tell us?
Yeah. But I asked you about the characters. So you agreed it's important to have the characters to be in place, truthful and trustworthy. So I'm just going to tell you that, and I've affirmed to you, he was known as Sadiq al-Amin. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known as the most trustworthy, most truthful by his own people. So that's already attested by the community. Now, what evidence did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ have? So remind me about ascensions and Miraj, because it seems to like we cannot just go into every question. Focus on the main, and we will touch on the periphery as we need. Right. Go ahead. Say, and then we come back.
No, but I want to say, but you said that, but he was illiterate though. He couldn't read or write. So how could he have like preached the verses, the revelations?
Okay.
When he couldn't read or write.
Very nice question. Now, do you speak Arabic? Right. Let's say you don't speak Arabic from his own admission. I'm going to give you 2-3 words. See if you can convey that 3 words to the people, because that is based on your illiteracy of Arabic language. قل هو الله أحد. قل هو الله أحد. Now it means say Allah is one. Now can you convey that message? قل, say to them, قل هو الله أحد. Now,
But this isn't evidence.
wait, were you able to convey this message to the people who may know Arabic, like I know Arabic, you may know Arabic, he may know Arabic, and we've understood? Even you not knowing even the basic letters of Arabic alphabet, you were able to convey it. Do you see? Just being literate in this form of someone who writes it doesn't make them unable or not able to convey the message. For example, the disciples of Jesus Christ, we know they're ordinary fishermen. They are not literate people. They didn't write and compose the Gospels. Yet they conveyed the message. And it was written down by other people. So it doesn't stop them. Now, about the prophet's proof of his prophethood. So we say God gave him so many evidence for his prophethood. They come in the form of miracles which cannot be replicated. Miracles which cannot be imitated. Like there are more than 300 authenticated miracles of the Prophet. How many have you heard of the miracles of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? From your reading, this is just to tell me that how much you have read.
Do you have
how
any
many?
evidence for that? Do you have any
I know
evidence
miracles.
for the miracles?
In our tradition, there are more than 300 authenticated miracles of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Can I say something? Can I say
Brother, just 1 second, you will. How many have you heard about the authenticated miracles of Prophet Muhammad?
I know a miracle. Shall I say a miracle?
No, before you say that,
Go ahead.
No, like for example, they said that Muhammad split the moon in half. That's one of the Prophet Muhammad, he split the moon.
yeah. So in our tradition, this is one of them.
That's what they did.
Now, this is one of them. That Prophet split the moon. So now we know that you've heard one.
I've heard of that.
How many others have you heard of out of the 300 authenticated means that are sound to us? There are many, more than 300.
But it's for me, like if I want to believe something, I really need good evidence. I can't believe in anything.
Good evidence means
I know what
evidence of his actions of miracles.
Can I say something?
Like I can't believe in anything. Like I need really good evidence.
You said that
to believe something.
you said that Muhammad did 300 miracles, all of that, yeah?
Authenticated.
But why is it not in the Quran, like the way Jesus did miracles in the Quran?
Yeah.
How come they didn't write those miracles?
One second.
in the Quran, like they did
No,
with
the
Jesus?
Quran says that people, they don't normally want to believe in signs of God. Yeah? But the Quran gives signs after signs and they turn away. Quran talks about the splitting of the moon, but the Quran talks about the Quran itself as the most self-evident, eternal, everlasting miracle. And this is the most important miracle of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now, I want to ask you about this. Jesus Christ, you know Jesus Christ in Christianity. What miracles did he perform according to what people asked?
In the Bible.
People asked for miracles. What miracle did he perform in their demands?
Like in the Bible.
In the Bible.
In the Bible, he said that he turned water into
No. People demanded miracles. And he answered them. What miracles did he perform based on their demands? He said, no sign shall be given to you except. So he didn't give anything. He gave no miracles. So now we have a bigger problem in the Christian tradition, except one, which is the sign of Jonah, right? So he did not perform any miracles on demand, as people are asking. So coming back to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Quran is the eternal, everlasting, most important miracle of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Why do I say that? Because the Quran itself challenges people. If you don't believe that Prophet Muhammad, his slave, is the one that God gave the Quran to, sent the Quran down to. What people have to do is produce a single chapter like the Quran. If they are not able to do that themselves, like you don't know Arabic, for example, you can seek your helpers and your witnesses to do that job besides God. If you cannot do that, and the Quran says you will not be able to do that, then fear the fire of hell, whose fuel is man and stones. So the Quran has been challenging people to bring a surah, a chapter like unto the Quran.
Can I ask something? What is the purpose? What is the meaning with the Quran? Where are we going? Why is the
What's the
Quran?
purpose of Islam?
Yeah. What is it?
Instructions.
The Quran
After
is
that, where are we going?
The Quran is the final guidance from God, telling you why you're here,
So why are you?
why you
Why
came
are we
from.
here?
Why are we here?
Look.
Why are we here?
One second.
Why are we here?
Remember, the question is asked. The background we shouldn't forget. What makes the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a prophet? If you now somehow turn this question into what is the prime message of the Quran, I'm willing to entertain that. But let's focus on the original question. What makes the Prophet Muhammad a prophet of God?
Can you just define for me? For me, like I told you, if I am going to believe something, I need it to be logical, coherent.
Oh, thank you for reminding that.
Yes. I'll
come back to this point.
I want it to be. You have to
Yes.
be verified with truth.
Sure.
By truth and all these things.
Logical coherence.
Yeah, logical coherence is for me important. I can't just believe in anything.
Very good.
It's like I need.
So this is just a translation.
I need.
Agree.
I need evidence.
Yeah. So logical coherence. Let's start with some logical coherence of the Quran. The Quran talks about God. Say He is God, the one. God, the eternally besought of all. He begets not, nor was begotten, and there is none comparable to Him. Let me establish to you the logical and the rational coherence of this small chapter called Surah Al-Ikhlas, chapter 112 of the Quran.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
the Quran says God is one.
yeah, He's
And
one.
wait.
He's
One-
singularity, right? Singularity.
Sorry, if you allow me to establish
No,
the
it's just-
Quranic,
just the conversation.
the coherence of that.
Yeah, he is.
He is one and only. That's the word ahad is one of its own. One and only.
Yes.
Unique.
Okay.
Eternally besought of all. Someone who is totally independent and everyone and everything depends on him. He is absolute independent.
So he.
Being one, being absolute and independent means he is not dependent on his life for anyone. Like he doesn't have a father or a lineage or forefathers or parents.
He's internal.
And being one and unique and absolute, neither does he have any need for begetting or producing, siring, creating, generating an offspring from him. So he has no sons and daughters or children.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry. If you allow me to elaborate. If you are one and only, if you are unique and absolute, you have to be independent. You cannot be a father of.
What do you mean by absolute? He can't be absolute.
I'll-
He lacks certain abilities.
I'll tell you why he's absolute.
He lacks the.
One moment.
For example, he can't be loving.
If you allow
He
me.
can't be love in itself.
If you allow me, I will establish that. Remind me about love, right?
There's a lot.
Remind me about love, right? So, to finish this coherence of this surah, if God is one and unique and absolute, and you say why absolute? I'll tell you why he's absolute.
Yep.
If you are the only one and you're eternal with no beginning, did anyone bring you into existence? No. So are you in any way, shape or form dependent on your life, on your existence, on someone else or something else? The answer is no. That means you inherently possess the attributes of self-existence. And because you self-exist,
This is important.
Yeah, but
because you self-exist, I just want to make sure everyone understands that.
Yeah.
Because God exists by His own self, without any being dependent on anyone, His life is not dependent on anyone.
No.
If He exists with attributes. Because if He exists without any attributes, then someone else have to give Him attributes. Then He will be dependent. That means the attributes that God possesses are His own inherently. No one has given them. Bear with me. If God has attributes, would His attributes be limited? For example, God has attributes of knowledge. Would the attribute of knowledge be limited by any way, shape or form? We would say no. Because no one gave knowledge to God. He inherently, from eternity, possesses this attribute of knowledge. There can be no limitation placed to his attribute of knowledge. So he will be all knowledgeable. And because he exists even without a beginning of time, he is not bound by time or restricted by time. That means he knows the past, present and future without the restrictions. So God is then all knowledgeable. Excuse me. All knowledgeable. Do you agree so far?
Okay,
Do you agree so far?
Because evil, so Allah created everything. That means that He also created evil,
Pardon?
No?
not goodness. Where
He's
does
just
the
talking
evil
and
come
talking and
from?
talking.
Do you believe there's a God of evil in your
And what
religion?
he's saying
No.
does not
Right. So
doesn't
everything
mean anything.
is.
It just
But the
it-
Muslims-
excuse me.
the Muslims-
My friend,
when
my
he's
friend.
talking, he's
Excuse
it doesn't
me.
give me anything.
My friend, are you listening or are you going to interrupt with?
Sorry, excuse me, I'm just talking.
Look,
to
look,
this guy.
it is not fair that while you're discussing with us here, you interrupt it with hecklers. Hecklers come, let them be, let them heckle, they will come and they will go. There will be hecklers from all kinds. What we're saying is, as I said, excuse me, as I was saying, the coherence of this chapter. God is one, only, unique and absolute, and I just demonstrated why God is absolute. If God is absolute, don't listen to hecklers. If God is absolute, then
Seriously, I'm not interested in hearing your lectures. For me,
Do you see the
it does
problem?
not- No, listen to me.
Do you
For
see
me,
the problem?
It does not make sense. For me, it's
What didn't make sense?
For me, I want something
Excuse
to be
me.
coherent. I want something
Sure.
to be empirical tested.
Thank
and
you.
I want something to be it's to
One
able
moment,
to
brother.
live
Brother,
with
please,
it.
be
For me,
patient.
you have not answered the questions
Okay.
that this lady has been trying to ask.
what did she ask?
Where does evil
Sorry,
evil come
sorry,
from?
stop, please. What did she ask me for that question that I wasn't answering?
You were trying to. You were.
What did she ask, my friend? That I was not. No.
No, I'm
You
asking
said.
Do you remember what she asked?
You said. I wasn't answering.
No.
Were you listening to the
remember
question she asked?
Can you repeating my question?
Huh?
No.
No.
Now, so basically,
No,
so
that
excuse
wasn't
me.
the question.
No.
Can I ask again?
Excuse me. Listen.
Listen to
Listen.
the ladies as well.
Listen. As remember what I was doing. You said you want to know and believe in something that is coherent. Did you say that?
But that was my question.
Sorry. This gentleman, what's your name?
My name?
Yeah.
Is like Osman, like the third.
Osman?
The third caliph.
My name is Mansur Osman. Now, did you not want to believe in something which has to be coherent, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this is precisely what I was doing with a small chapter in the Quran. Look,
I'm not saying
Allow
that the
me-
idea of a singularity
listen,
is
not singularity.
coherent.
Not singularity.
That
Sorry,
the idea
brother,
of
please.
Allah is not coherent itself.
Excuse
but
me.
I'm saying that it lacks
my
the
friend,
possibility
my friend.
to be even greater.
Relax.
If
Relax.
it would have been, for
Osman.
example, triune, which I think
Osman.
is a much better
Osman.
way of thinking. I think
Osman.
that much
I did not.
It's a much better way.
Osman.
It's a much better way of.
My friend.
Yeah, I think it makes much more sense.
Hoffman,
Much more-
I did not
much-
pick a
much-
chapter in the
much-
Quran which is like
more-
20 pages long. I chose a chapter which was only 4.
I'm not interested, like
Subhanallah.
this gentleman said. For
Listen,
me, I want you. If you
how
want to
do
say-
you establish
say
coherence?
something- Say something
Okay.
interesting.
You
It
know
has
what?
to be logical.
I will leave
You
it.
need premise.
I will leave it there. I think I've already established. My friend,
Yeah.
Hoffman.
Yeah.
Sorry,
She has
sorry.
questions.
I want
She
to
has
ask
questions.
you. Can you answer my
You
question?
can.
wants a
But
question.
can you now?
Can you answer her question now?
Answer a question. And
Question now would be really.
Are you listening to him or are you discussing with me?
I want to listening to you.
Thank
but
you. Go ahead.
You want to
Disrespect-
answer my
disrespect
question.
her.
Go ahead. What question am I not answering?
Allah,
Mm-hmm.
He created everything.
Yes. He created
Everything.
everyone's actions.
That means the good and the evil.
Carry on. I'm not going to say anything. You
No,
carry
come
on.
on, no, answer that.
So answer what?
Come on.
He created
good
the
and evil.
And evil.
Yes
Is
or
that
no?
what
Yes,
the
yeah,
Quran
give
is
us
telling
yes
you?
or no.
Define
Yes,
evil.
yes or no.
Evil
yes
is
or no.
not good.
Come on.
An example.
he created things capable.
murderer.
Brother, excuse me, brother.
Murder,
Can you be
violence.
patient, right?
Yeah, I'm
Thank
here
you.
for that.
It's important quality to have called patience, right? Thank you. Go
Let
ahead.
this guy speak, man.
Because that,
I think
They created things with the capability to do good or evil.
brother, the reason why they want other people to join in the discussion
Standards of what's good
is
and evil.
because
Yeah.
to
What's evil
convolute
for me?
this matter.
One more
What's
time.
evil?
Okay,
for
carry
me
on,
is
carry on.
different for you.
No. Let him.
Carry on, brother. Carry on. Carry on.
So basically, there's a creation. Allah created us all. Free will.
if you can help me with this. Free
Why
will.
should I, brother? They are trying to divert the conversation from one speaker to multiple. No. I am saying.
Put forward a little thought,
I'm saying,
which is that
brother.
we're creation
Listen.
capable of things.
Look.
So
The
hopefully
reason
it's
why
hard-
we
we're
Muslims,
trying to create those-
have a particular understanding that if one of us speak, all of us, we will listen. If I need reminding, remind me. If I need correction, correct me.
I'm not
right.
correcting.
Thank you.
I'm adding.
But other than that, let's have this conversation. The lady asked, evil is the opposite of good. Give me an example.
Yeah. Violence, that's
Violence.
not good.
Okay.
You mean that if I
No.
murder someone, that's good?
Slow down. Violence. Violence is not necessarily evil. Police does violence. When a person wants to commit a rape,
That's not a very good.
excuse me, I'm trying to answer your question, and this gentleman Osman and the other guy here,
I
a
want to
heckler.
hear his answer.
Fine. But you see how they're interrupting me from answering your question? Would you be kind enough to tell them to listen to my answer?
Yeah, he's listening.
Thank you. Right. Violence is not necessarily evil. Let me give you examples.
Okay.
Police often applies violence to stop a grievous crime happening. For example, if a police sees someone with a gun and about to murder all of us here, they might shoot this guy's hand and legs to stop him from firing the gun but not killing him. That is violence. This violence is justified violence. That wasn't evil. Yeah? It's a good act what they have done to stop the mass murder happening. So your understanding of evil needs rechecking.
Have God created people who are born with sicknesses and illnesses?
that kill people.
Do you want me to answer that? Sure.
Have God created people to be born blind, people to be born with abilities? There's this insect which has this own ability to go into people's eyes and eat it from the inside. Have you heard this atheist famous Stephen Fry? There's this insect. Has God created this? He creates everything.
Shall I answer?
Created
Yeah,
an
okay.
insect which has this
Samir?
main purpose of, like Stephen Fry says, for me that is evil. I cannot believe in a God like that, and I also cannot believe in a God who does not have the ability.
Are you discussing with Stephen Fry or me?
To forgive without giving any justification for it. You cannot just forgive someone without there to be any atonement. If there's no atonement, it does not make sense.
Sure.
We need
Right.
the atonement.
Thank you.
And that for me is logical, coherent, and it makes much more
You
sense.
asked me a question,
for
and
me,
now you're
that's
talking about
important if I want
coherence
to-
of atonement.
That's it. For me, that's important.
If you allow me to respond to that, I will show you how that doesn't work
Something
out.
as the truth. I'm talking as well, and you should also.
No, I
learn
didn't
how
say
to
you're not.
listen.
Look. I didn't say you're not allowed to talk.
You should learn how to listen as well.
Excuse
Okay.
me. I didn't say you're not allowed to talk. I said, you asked me, did God create an insect that goes into the eye and eats their eyes and so on and so forth, as Stephen Fry said, so on and so and so. Now, you expect.
Did he? Yes or no?
Are you finished?
I want a yes or no.
Okay. Now I want to know first of all, are you finished with your question? Because if you haven't finished, I give you time again to finish your question. Then I'm going to answer.
Can you answer yes or no on that? Is that possible?
Can you tell me when you're finished?
Okay. Now I'm finished.
Thank you.
Like.
No. You said you're finished and you're still
Okay.
talking.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Thank you. So no talking now. Okay. Now.
That was not my question because I wanted a yes or no. That was my last question. A yes or no.
Have you finished with your
That was
question?
not my question.
Have you finished with your question?
It was a yes or no question.
Excuse me. Have you finished with
It
your
was a
question?
yes or no question.
Sorry. Just tell me if you're finished with your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I expect you as a gentleman, Osman, to listen to the answer, right? So you asked me, have you heard about that insect that goes into the eye? And
That wasn't the original question.
what was the original question? Remind me.
Did Allah created the evil?
And I asked you, what do you mean by evil?
Yeah,
And you defined. And then
He answered.
and
Did he create that insect?
one moment. So then I answered, evil is relative. Did I not say that?
Okay, can I say something? Okay, so
Please,
Okay, so-
see what you have to add.
like evil, like for example, according to Islam, like committing homosexual acts, that's an evil sin to be doing, and like all of what is it, committing adultery.
So you're differentiating between what makes evil. We say, look, there is a distinction between sin and other acts. Sin is an act of willful disobedience to God and His will. When you say, did God create evil? I ask you to define evil. And then you somehow realize evil is a relative term. because police acting on violence is not evil, because you gave example of evil as violence. Then you brought up this example of
Insect.
an insect, something that, you know, it just comes and eats your eyes. I say, look, God has created us with a purpose.
What's the purpose?
You see, it's very difficult to answer a question when
it's
every
very easy to say
moment
yes or
when
no.
about to answer it, you keep on interrupting. So give me 2 minutes at least, right? God created us with a purpose. Now, the purpose is to worship God. Now, He created people with different levels of abilities. And He is utmost just. He is not even to the least unjust to the people He's created. So those who have been created with no eyes at all, let alone the insect comes and eats it, they don't even have an eye. Or,
So you're actually
excuse
saying,
me.
No.
I said 2 minutes, and
Yeah,
you can't
but
even
you-
you can't go and stay
No.
silent for
2
2 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes.
Sorry,
30
sorry,
seconds.
sorry.
More.
I know how much is 2 minutes. Yes, that wasn't even 2 minutes.
Okay, I can check the clock if you want to. 2 minutes?
Stop 2 minutes again. Thank you. Right.
Getting you 2 minutes. Okay.
Why not? Because you interrupted.
Okay, 2 minutes from
Right. So God created people with purpose. All of us have to fulfill our purpose. Some of us may have 2 hands, 2 legs, some of us may not. Doesn't matter what you have got. How God created you, with eyes or without eyes. God will judge us based on the ability that we have given and whether we were able to fulfill it. So if a person is very poor or very rich, it doesn't mean the rich person is going to be able to perform this purpose of his creation or her creation better than the poor person. It may be the opposite. Likewise, a person who is able and a person who is disabled, it doesn't mean the able person will fulfill the purpose more better than a disabled person. It may be the opposite. A disabled person, knowing the disability, still is able to perform the purpose of God that God has created them with, worshiping God alone. So God being
1 more minute.
the Bible school or college or the seminars that you go to, ask them to train you on patience.
And you as well.
No, this is my right. I said it rightfully.
listen to him.
Excuse me.
You wouldn't listen
No,
to him.
be fair.
Yeah,
Are you a
4
fair
minutes.
person?
I get 4
Rightfully. When we agreed on 2 minutes, he interjected before it finished.
Yeah,
So
and
that
I
means
asked him to stop.
No,
And
that
now
means
you
minutes
listen
is-
to
that
him.
means
clock is ticking.
my advice
The
is
clock
not
is
an
ticking.
arrogant advice. I'm giving
clock
you
is
a good
ticking.
advice.
The clock is
Good
ticking.
advice. Train yourself. Right. So as I said, God is being just, and He's always just. We can fulfill our purposes even having eyes or without having eyes. God will take all of that into account, whether based on this, the ability that we have, whether we are fulfilling the purpose or not. Returning back to your question about God creating evil or good. Now, God creates all our actions, but the intention of us to kill, to rape, to murder is something that we will be blamed and accountable for, not God, because we are intending it. Imagine you want to...
Yeah, now
you,
2
sorry.
minutes gone.
No, that
Okay,
wasn't
now-
my 2 minutes.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
it.
that's 2 minutes. Now it's my turn, because you've been talking for so long. And let me say, you've just admitted that God has created people blind. God has created... You know, my brother, he had cancer. He died in May. He suffered a lot. It was a really hard time for me, you know? And this guy just told me, God created him like that, with brain tumor. He just said it in my face. And I cannot worship a God like that. I would never do that. I do not find that as a good and loving God. How can God create people with sicknesses and illnesses? And it's not just sicknesses and illnesses, it's suffering. If God creates people like that, then for me, at least, and I think most people do, think that that's an evil God, if he would do that. Yeah, my 2 minutes are not over.
You can get 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I...
Are you watching time?
You have been really saying it right through. And there's so many problems with this singularity. Justice. How can you get justice if you don't have atonement? Do you know what that means? Do you know what? Do you know we need atonement? How can you be free? How can you be justified?
Give him 5 minutes to explain that.
God,
right?
if
Is
he
that
just
fair?
forgives, if
Give him
someone
5
slaps-
minutes to explain it.
No. If someone,
it's a big subject.
If someone rapes my daughter, and the judge comes and he says, "Okay, I'll forgive this raper,"
then that judge is an evil judge. There has to be atonement. The Islamic view does not offer any atonement at all. What it offers is a God who says, I can forgive this, I can forgive that, I condemn this, I can condemn that. There's no such thing as justification.
No, give him more time. It's not enough.
With a Christian,
Take time.
With a Christian worldview, you have the opportunity to have both. You have justification through Jesus Christ as the atonement, and you also have forgiveness. Those two things cannot be if you don't have atonement, and Islam does not provide that. It does not provide that at all.
Can I say something? Like they believe according to the Islamic.
No, for Islam, I will explain. For your perspective, you explain. Leave Islam to me to explain. Go ahead.
He's not a Christian.
I'm not.
What I'm saying is, if you want to say what Islam considers, I will explain that.
No.
In your perspective,
if I say anything about Islam, could you just correct me?
no, I will say it myself.
No, because let me just say what I want to say quick. Because like in this, I've got a lot of Muslim friends, and they told me this. I've got a lot of Muslim friends, and they told me that in Islam, right, like, for example, why God lets people have diseases. Because they believe that life is a test. God is like testing them.
And he also said the same thing. And I'm saying what he just.
You are interrupting him in his 2 minutes or his 5 minutes.
No, he don't want the 2 minutes. He just asked
What he just said
fair
is
enough.
not a good testimony for me. I would never believe in a God like that. I would never believe in a God like
because they believe in Islam.
Why don't you allow me to say what I believe?
No, I'm just saying.
It's only fair, isn't it?
What is it that like God's trying to like? It's like a test. Like God's trying to see like if you can handle the trial. Because I know in Islam they say that in the Quran every human being is going to have tests and trials. So they believe in Islam that all the diseases and sickness you have is a test from Allah to see whether you love Him, to see whether you love Him and you can you're a true believer. That's why.
Okay.
Am I right?
Can I ask something? First, your Muslims friends, what do they say about eternity? Or what's the meaning?
What do you mean?
The test, where is it going? Are they going to meet God, or what's?
God's gonna reward you for the way you handle that trial on the day of judgment. And Allah will reward you.
Let me come into this, right? So you talked about how Islam doesn't offer justice and forgiveness. Talking about coherence. To define justice is to give the right where it's due. When Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, according to the Bible, you expect them to acknowledge their mistake and ask God for forgiveness. And you expect God to forgive, because it's forgiving. There is no mention of God forgiving Adam and Eve.
There's even an animal who had to do the atonement in the first book.
No patience.
There's even
I am not even finished 30 seconds and he's interrupting.
Okay.
But you cannot say things which are wrong according
Excuse
to
me.
Christianity, and then
Okay.
I'm not allowed to.
Yeah, you
Okay,
have to. Yeah.
when I said
That's not fair.
Adam
I
and Eve,
cannot
okay,
say a lot
did
of wrong
Adam
things
and
about
Eve,
Islam, and
okay.
then you're not.
Forget
allowed
the
to
2
interrupt
minutes
me. Yeah.
interactions.
Okay.
Did Adam and Eve ask God to forgive them when they committed eating of the apple, of the tree?
Pardon? What is?
Did Adam and Eve ask God sincerely, humbly, willingly?
No.
No.
Isn't that what I said? There is no mention of that in the Bible. So I was correct. So let me continue then.
that's not the point.
So I am establishing a point. So here, you expect them who are walking in the presence of God to realize the mistake when they committed the mistake. There is no mention of that. There is no mention of God forgiving them. My next point is this. These two individuals committed a willful disobedience of God's command. Do not eat of the tree or whatever, and they fall short. They disobeyed God. I wasn't there. I did not take part in it. So I am in no way responsible for that action. Why do you believe in this original sin and atonement? This is totally unjust. Because to punish me for the sins of my father is totally unjust. I need to be punished for my own action. Ezekiel chapter 18 in the Jewish Bible is a refutation of the whole concept of original sin or forefather sin passing on to the children. It totally dismantles and demolishes this concept that, you know what, if you are a murderer, your son can be punished for that. Totally dismantles it. You may have not read it. Ezekiel chapter 18, whole chapter is a complete, blatant refutation of this belief. So, but you believe in this atonement. that Adam and Eve sinned. Because of that, we are all guilty. We should all go to hell. And if you don't believe in Christ, who is God incarnate, who paid for that sin, then we will go to hell. But here is the problem with another problem. Coherence, incoherence number 1 and incoherence number 2 here.
What was incoherence? Because it's not. You can say that you think it's unjust,
No.
but it's nothing to do with incoherence.
I'll tell you what
And
incoherence
do not
is.
know
I'll tell you what
incoherence is.
Coherence means a system in which you don't punish the innocent.
That has nothing to do with
Excuse me,
coherence.
listen. A coherent system of justice is, remember my words, a coherent system of justice is in which within that system the guilty is punished, not the innocent. The guilty. In your system of justice, the innocent like me
No.
is paying the price for the guilty like Adam and Eve.
No, that's not right.
Correct me
If
then.
you're punished,
Correct me.
If you're guilty, then
Do I
you
have
are
original
guilty.
sin?
Do you know what? There's this guy called Augustine. Have you read him?
Have you?
I've read some.
So it's not good enough.
Have you
Reading
read-
some is not
No,
good
no.
enough.
Have
just told you.
Have you?
Me not
Because that's
some.
what you're trying
Okay,
to tell these.
then
That's not good enough.
You're trying
It's
to
not good
tell
enough.
these people about original sin, which is a doctrine. What?
Is it passed on to us?
Huh?
Is the original sin of Adam on your shoulders?
Yeah, and what Augustine says, that you are guilty in your pre-existence by picking the tree in Adam. That's what Augustine says. It's his theory.
Did you willfully choose to do that?
So that's his answer to that. But that's not the point.
Very bad
You're
answer.
Saying,
Very bad answer.
Really good answer.
No, let me tell you why.
Logical, coherent answer.
Let me tell you why
That's
it's
what it is.
incoherent and
Because
bad.
You need to
No,
study.
allow me
you
to-
need to study.
No, you made a claim.
No. You need to study.
I wanna
what
show you how
coherence
incoherent it is.
Because coherence,
Yeah.
it's
What does
it's
mean?
about logic.
Okay, what does
It's about
coherent mean?
logic.
What does coherence mean?
Coherence means that it has to. You have to be able